Is somebody getting some voice? Am I audible?
Yes, you are, but ma'am is not audible. Like she is not speaking.
Okay.
Good morning, students. Can you see my slides?
Good morning, ma'am. It is
Yes,
visible.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry for joining late. Let me carry on from where we had left off. I'll just review. We were discussing Chief Information Officer. And the fact is that Chief Information Officer today is known as a Chief Technical Officer, CIO, or a CIO or a CTO. Now, why we call him a Chief Information Officer or Technological Officer is because he dictates the technology, the information technology to be used in the organization. He enables employees to understand the requirement of a new technology, therefore, the change in the processes required, and how the new technology is going to benefit the organization. So, he is a strategist today and he helps the organization for selection of a technology. We call him, therefore, a chief technical officer or a chief technological officer or a chief information officer. Now, so he plays a strategic role, an operational, and he also dictates the management initiatives of a company. Now, when his role has changed, but when he emerged in the organization, when his position was created in the organization, in simple words, when the position was created in the organization, he was known as a EDP manager, E electronic, D data, P processing, electronic data processing manager. Now, where he was called so because he would just compile the data which is generated in an organization. And when computer was still making foothold in organization in the early 80s, every organization imbibing technology was costly. Getting a computer installed was costly. Therefore, every organization would try to identify where is the need of a computer highest. And they realized that it is better to put a system or automate that system which has where numbers lay, when a lot of number crunching is done, and the chances, a lot of data is to be entered, and the chances of errors is also high. So they identified the finance department as the department where computers should be installed, and they automated that function first. Many other organizations felt that it is also HR, human resource, because it is human resource which is generating the payroll for every employee. So they're creating the salary for employees every month. So that is another place where a lot of number crunching is involved. And many of them, therefore, many organizations, therefore, put the computers in the HR department or the personal department. There were very few organizations who put it as an independent function. The moment they put it in an independent function, they reported directly, the EDP manager reported directly to the CEO. And they were the people who were in the right earnest. The others put it in the finance department. So the EDP manager worked under the finance head. Some others put it on the HR function. So the EDP manager reported to the HR function, the human resource head or the personal manager. And these functional heads acted as gatekeepers of information, and they would churn or distort the information as per requirement. So it should not, CIO should not be a line function. It should be a staff function. You've done the difference between line and staff, I'm sure, in concepts, where it should be an independent function, providing only a support role to the organization. So let's go back. In the early days of computerization, when computerization was still making a foothold, automation of manual operation was the main goal. So the basic objective was to convert this tedious manual work to computer-based work. Therefore, most companies computerized those operations which were tedious to do manually, where excessive numbers lay, where chances of inaccuracies were high, where chances of mistakes were high, and therefore they automated the finance department first. Thereby, one third of organization, EDP manager reported to the finance head, one third of organization, EDP managers reported to the HR head, and the remaining one third, EDP manager reported to the CEO. He should be an independent function, not a sub-function to any department, and therefore he should actually report directly to the CEO. But the trend has changed now. They're reporting directly to the CEO and not under the functional heads anymore. Uh, Now these EDP managers are an independent functional, and they're reporting directly to the CEO, and they're like a staff function. And their role has changed. No more are they called EDP managers. They are called CIOs or CTO, because they are not only processing data, but they're advising company about the technology that the company should use. Yet the CIO is not very much acceptable in an organization. Why is it so? First is they have a technical vision. He is basically responsible for creating the IT infrastructure for the company, but then it is observed, or it is the perception of others, other employees of other departments, that he lacks a business vision. So they feel that when he dictates that this technology should be imbibed, it is for the technology's sake, not for the requirement of the technology for the organization. So it is quite possible that the organization does not require this technology. This is the perception of the line managers, the HR head, the finance head, operations head, because they feel that they see him as an imposter, and they feel he's not a part of themselves. He's not a man who knows about marketing. He's not a person who knows about human resource. He's not a person who knows about finance. So what does he know about? He does not have a business vision. So this is their perception, that he lacks business vision, and so what he dictates is not generally acceptable. In an organization, when he talks about a new technology, there are some who have an open mind, they are early takers. There are adopters also who think about it and okay, they accept it, accept the change. There are many followers who see that others are accepting, so they also join the group. But there are also laggards who need a push, and cynics who are very difficult to convince. And you need to the IT head needs to convince the IT head needs to convince each one of them, each of these groups, which is a difficult task. Now, then, so this is one perspective. Then, what we talk of is IT functional tussle. This IT functional tussle arises from what I said right now, that these managers, marketing manager knows about the ins and outs of marketing. The finance manager has an understanding of finance. And they have a feeling that the CIO is an imposter. He knows only about technology. He does not have a business vision. He does not know anything about the business. So why should we listen to him? Further, they feel that this IT professional, apart from a business vision, they live in a very structured environment where accuracy and predictability is valued. I think this is as far as we were discussing yesterday. So he has a technical vision, and they live in a very structured environment where accuracy and predictability is valued, where perfectionist thinking is the norm, where perfectionist thinking is the norm. 2 plus 2 makes an exact 4. But business environment, we all know, is an uncertain environment. We live in a what we call a VUCA. Yes, we live in a V is for volatile, U is for uncertain, C is for complex, and A is ambiguous. Business environment is a VUCA, VUCA environment. V is a volatile environment. U is an uncertain environment. C is complex environment, and ambiguous environment. So nothing is constant in a business environment but change. So we live in a VUCA environment, and what's VUCA? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. And this was a term given by those who gave leadership theory. They are Warren Warren Bennis and Bert Nanus. So Bert and Nanus gave the concept of VUCA. VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. So leadership theory of in response to response of U.S. Army War College to the collapse of USSR. So he talked about this. They talked about a uncertain environment, an ambiguous environment. So business environment is an environment where this perfectionist thinking will not be do. We need a more flexible mind, a more flexible mind where perfectionist thinking would not do. So they refuse to accept him. So it's not a business environment is an unpredictable environment where nothing is constant. Predictability is something hard to find. The rules of the games change. So what was considered the rules of the game, what were the considered for strengths for winning become obsolete in a couple of years. So the only thing is which is constant in a business environment is change. So perfectionist thinking, most business, no business can afford to think of, no business can rely on. So what we say, they believe that 2 plus 2 is 4. But then, now that reminds me of an interview where a Japanese came for an interview and he was asked many questions. And the last question that he was asked is, what is 2 plus 2? So the Japanese manager, the person who was being interviewed, he said, "Well, 2 plus 2 is 11." So Japanese think of synergy. They believe that when it's a team which is working, each will contribute more than his actual worth. So the synergy talks about a team which will give more than the sum of the whole. So 2 plus 2 is 11 according to the Japanese. An American was asked. He was also there for an interview. He said, well, 2 plus 2, he took out his laptop and, made a calculation. He said is exact 4. So they live in a more perfectionist environment. An Indian was there at the end for the interview, apart from the remaining questions. A large number of questions were asked, and the last question was the same question. When you ask in an interview the same set of questions to different people who are appearing for the interview, you basically assess their aptitude, you basically assess their response to any question. So you can make a comparison between the different people persons being interviewed. So the Indian thought for a while, and he said, well, 2 plus 2 can be anything. You just tell me how much you want it to be. So see, this was a kind of innovative answer, a very out of the box thinking. He didn't say, well, 2 plus 2 would be 4. That is a static question. Or he talked about synergy, 2 plus 2 is 11. He said, well, what do you want me to be? So you tell me. So he says, in other words, you tell me the goal. You tell me your turnover. And I will do everything to meet that. You fix your targets. You tell me your goal. So this is the kind of out of the box thinking that the Indians are apt to, and therefore he was selected. So you see, business environment is an environment which you cannot predict. It's an environment you cannot say for sure that these are the rules of the game and this has worked, so this will work in the future as well. So this is a business environment where the IT manager really does not belong to. So they refuse to accept him. They refuse to accept the IT manager. So what the IT managers dictate, the functional managers refuse to accept. They just cannot accept. Functional managers find it hard to digest. The IT manager, they agree, has in-depth knowledge about technology, but they feel that he lacks how business environment works. How business environment, they lack the thinking of how business environment work, and therefore they could not. They refuse to accept him. They refuse to accept the IT manager. So this is the IT functional tussle. IT managers dictate, functional managers do not accept. Functional managers find it hard to digest. IT managers need in-depth knowledge about business work. They need to learn how business processes work. And they need, therefore, to change their own perspective. So they believe that IT manager lacks the business vision. He lacks the knowledge that we functional managers have, and they refuse to accept him. So CIO should be included in business strategy. So when he dictates, they said, what idea does he have about what our requirements are, what the business requirements are? So they refuse to accept him. Business a CIO should be included in business strategy. Organization needs strategists with information perspective. Focus should be on how to process information, how to glean valuable information from the data to provide value to the organization and provide competitive edge to the organization. So we have mentioned this earlier that when technology is penetrating in the organization, they are more in use. Like we talked about yesterday, I think social media, how it is being used for recruitment, how it is being used by the managers for branding their product, and so on. So this is something which the CIA should be able to translate. He should be able to translate technology, the use of technology, into business perspective. So CIO should have in-depth knowledge about technology, knowledge about emerging technologies, and he would advise investing in the technology. He would advise on the use of this technology by dovetailing the usage with the corporate strategy, by dovetailing the usage with each area, how each area is actually going to benefit with the installation of this new technology. Now, what is emerging? What is happening? So already we know there's an IT functional tussle. The functional managers don't want to accept him. They feel he lacks business vision. They feel he lacks knowledge about the business, and they see him as an imposter. Now, functional managers. Now, what is emerging is there are many functional managers. Say the marketing manager. Say the marketing manager who has good knowledge about technology. He has interest in technology, and he develops himself. And he develops himself in technology. He closely follows the new developments, and finally, what happens? He becomes more acceptable in the organization because he's one amongst us. The line managers feel, the HR manager, the finance manager feels that he's one amongst us. They don't see him as an imposter. So they don't see him as an imposter. So gradually, what happens? These functional experts replace. So it's a marketing head who has technological perspective, who learns about technology, who has experience and knowledge. So they become more acceptable, and they start replacing the people from a IT area. So the growing strategic role of information technology has mobilized many organizations to pick CIO from the user area. User area is the functional managers, HR manager, marketing manager, finance manager, who has a knowledge about technology and who is more experienced even about the business. So appears to be a stronger contender for the role of a CIO. So they pick up a person from the user area because they don't see him as an imposter. He's more acceptable. And the other factor is that he has a business vision. So a person from a user area, one of the functional areas, who has knowledge about technology, who has an inclination or interest towards technology, and who develops himself, he becomes more acceptable to the organization because they don't see him as an imposter. They feel he's one amongst us. So the CIO's place is a threat. So many companies pick up CIO from user area, say a functional manager, marketing manager, have experience, interest, inclination in IT, who has developed himself, has a business perspective, maybe not so much technically strong. He replaces the CIO with technical perspective. So CIO's position is at a threat. Like we'll be taking up a short case of a study of Devang Mehta, who had been the NASSCOM chief. He was from the user area. He was basically a chartered accountant. So that was not his domain. IT was not his domain. But he took up the position of a CIO of the country. He took up the position of the NASSCOM chief, and he had many valuable contributions. So we'll take up in the following class a small case study of Devang Mehta, his personality and his role and his contribution. So there are many such instances. Companies pick up CIO from user area who have an experience and interest in inclination in IT, who has developed himself, who has a business perspective, not so much a technical perspective. So he replaces the CIO. So CIO's position is at the threat. Gradually, what will happen? Functional managers from the user area would be promoted from within. So you'll not make a search outside the organization, but he will be promoted from within. He's one of us. He has a business perspective, and so he should be more acceptable. He becomes more acceptable to the organization. These functional managers work more as a strategic business partner in the organization. Companies have no choice but to outsource the technical issues, and other technical issues would be outsourced, and the day-to-day operations could be outsourced. A CIO with a banking background, it is said, is better placed to advise on benefits of networking than a CIO with a technical background. So this is the perspective, and as such, people from the user area are gradually replacing. So there are more instances of non-IT executive playing a greater role. Um, like Steve Jobs, he did not have a technical background, but we know how much contribution he has made. He has a made mark in the IT world. So that's another discussion we will try to focus on. So there are many instances of non-IT people playing a greater role, making a greater contribution in the field of IT. They have played a greater role in linking IT with business strategy, and this is evolving. As a new generation of computer savvy functional managers move up the rank, the CTO position might totally vanish. So we will, remove the position of a CTO. It might not be needed in the organization anymore. So CIO needs to prove himself and needs to safeguard his position. CIO needs to prove himself and need to safeguard his position. So what is our advice to the CIO? So what happened is earlier we were picking CIO from outside. Now CIO's position is at a threat because somebody from the user area would be replacing him. So advice to him is CIO, apart from the technical perspective, he must know about business. He must he must have a vision for the organization. He must have an understanding of the business. He must have an understanding of the business culture. And so CIO must understand that to be a CIO, the right technological credentials are necessary. Okay, it's a must, but not altogether sufficient. He needs to learn the nitty gritty of business strategy, and therefore, advises a consulting background would be of help. So, if a consulting background would give him a business perspective, he'll give him perspective. So, he works sometime in the pharma, so that gives him a business perspective in the retail, banking, real estate, knowledge about the different culture of organization. He must develop soft skills because this is where also they lack. They don't have interpersonal skills. They don't know how to interact with the employees. They lack communication skills. They lack convincing skills. So when he's talking about a new technology, he has to be very soft. He has to be very polite. He has to be persuasive. He has to be have the have the skill to convince people. He must have the skill to sell his ideas. What he'll basically be doing when he's talking about new technology, he's basically trying to sell an idea. So he must have the persuasion and the convincing skills. He must be very strong at communication skills. So this is our first advice. That technical vision is okay, it's necessary, but knowing about technology is not sufficient. You need to know much more. You need to learn about how business works. So he could work as a consultant and advise consultant, and he could open himself to any kind of organization, pharma, hospitality, retail, banking, real estate, where his knowledge about how the business organizations work would increase. He must become strong in soft skills. He must develop interpersonal skills, communication skills, convincing skills, the skills to sell ideas. So, our advice to him is he must spend time in business and business training. Now, don't train yourself in technology only. Not there should be training in business. He must develop a vision for the organization, and he must seek partnership with line. So when he supports, he suggests something. there should be somebody who should back him. So let him become more close to somebody, maybe in the finance, somebody higher up in the marketing. So whenever he's talking about a technology, he gets a backing. He must seek partnership with line. That's what we mean by he must seek partnership with line. Then, when he called for meetings, he must be attending in the meetings. So he should be present. So if he's called in a meeting, if it's a, he should not say, okay, I can attend it. He should not pick and choose. He should be ready to go for a business meeting, which might not have much contribution from him. Yet he must attend all the meetings that he is called for in order to garner some information about how the business operates. And also to for visibility. So he should be seen everywhere. So when you work in an organization, what we do, we also advise the juniors that as long as your seniors are there, stay around, stick around, even if you're in your room and doing nothing. So the visibility needs to be there. So you see, you our advice to him is spend time in business training. Don't train yourself. Update yourself only about technology. Update yourself about the business as well. Seek partnership with line, get close to somebody, a finance manager or a HR manager, so that when you are selling an idea, when you're suggesting something, you get support. Attend all meetings, because there you will learn, you'll get an understanding of the business, and also contribute in the meeting. So you contribute there, you make so that your presence is noticed, so that you have visibility. It's necessary to have visibility in the organization. Otherwise, people will shove you aside. They will, sideline you. What we use the term sideline you. So this is advice to him. Then study business processes and improve them. Build credibility. So you should study the business processes, and you should use technology to improve the business process. Only then you get credibility. If you do something good, you will be accepted. Okay, he did this, and this is a valuable input. It helped us. It helps to save the cost. So study the business processes and use technology to improve them. Thereby, you will build credibility for yourself and your work in the organization. Then many a time when you're attending a meeting, your suggestions might be, you might be shut up in the meeting. Your suggestions might not be, it might be refuted. Somebody might disagree with you. So don't become, don't take it harshly. Be open to ideas. So it's not necessary that all that you say would be accepted. So be open to ideas and try to explain whatever you do in business terms. Try to explain whatever you do in business terms. Uh, so we will take up throw light on Devang Mehta and Steve Jobs in the next class. Now, just let me review very fast what we have done. Basically, the CIO position came in the early days of computerization, way back in the 80s. Way back in the 80s, I just run through the slides again. So way back in the 80s, at that time he was known as a EDP manager, electronic data processing manager. But today his role has changed because he's a strategist, and therefore his name has changed. The nomenclature that we use for him is no more no more EDP manager, but a CTO or a CIO. We call him a Chief Technological Officer or a Chief Information Officer because he advises on the technology to be used in the organization. In the early days of computerization, when computers were still trying to get a foothold, it was very costly to automate a particular process, to install a computer. So organizations identified those areas where computerization was very, very essential. And most organizations felt finance is one area because that is an area where numbers lay, where the chances of error is very high, and it is very manual and tedious to operate. So they automated this function. So 1/3 of organization had EDP managers reporting to the finance head. Many others felt that it's HR, that is the payroll, which is being which has to be generated every month for every employee. The salary has to be generated. So that's another area where number crunching is involved. So they automated the HR function. So EDP managers in 1/3 of organizations, EDP managers reported to the HR function. But and many others kept it as an independent entity which reported directly to the CEO. EDP manager should not be under any functional head. It should be seen as a line function, a staff function, an independent function to report to the CEO rather than reporting to a functional head. If they report to the functional head, these functional heads act as gatekeepers of information, means they distort information as per their choice. Now, so this is one thing to note. So we have one third of organization, they reported to the finance head, one third to HR head, one third reported to the CEO. So he should be an independent function, not a sub-function of any department, and he should report directly to the CEO. Now, techno-vision to business vision. Generally, the CIO has a technical vision. He does not have a business vision, and he tries to dictate technology for technology's sake. That should not be the norm. And therefore, technology that he's suggesting might not be acceptable, because in an organization, there are many kind of people. There are early takers, adopters, followers, laggards, and also cynics who are the most difficult to convince. You need to convince each one of them, and you'll be able to do so when you're able to convert the technology into business terms, how it is going to benefit the organization in terms of speedy delivery, in terms of savings in cost, in terms of in terms of right recruitment, or other. You should be able to convert it into business terms. Second, there is always an IT functional tussle. First is that there are different kind of people in an organization. Like cynics are also there. To sell your idea to them is very difficult. The other is IT functional tussle. The functional managers believe that the CIO belongs to a very structured environment where accuracy and predictability is valued, where perfectionist thinking is the norm. So they believe that they have a perfectionist thinking, accuracy is valued, where 2 plus 2 is 4. But we know business environment is an uncertain environment. It is a VUCA environment. V is for volatile, U uncertain, C complex, and A ambiguous environment. This was the term which was given by Warren Bennis and Bert Nanas in their leadership theory, and which came up in response to the collapse of the USSR in 1990s. So this was a theory given by Bennis Nanas, that business environment, the environment is a VUCA environment, a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous environment. So perfectionist thinking or accuracy cannot be the norm. So 2 plus 2 can be anything. It could be 4, it could be 8, it could be 12, it could just be anything. So predictability, so anything which is constant is change. The only thing that we find constant is a business world is change, is uncertainty, or it's the change. So what the IT managers dictate, business managers find it difficult to accept. They find it difficult to accept. So he should be able to devise a strategy with information perspective. He should focus should be on how to process information and to glean valuable information from all the data which is generated. So apart from technical knowledge, he must have the knowledge about new technology and advise upon technology. But technical knowledge is not the only thing that you want. So ultimately what is happening, functional experts like a marketing manager who has more experience, who has experience in business, and who develops himself in the area of technology is found to be more acceptable than the CIO. So companies pick up CIO from the user area who have an interest and inclination in IT, and they replace him with they give him the position of a CIO. So we have instances, like I said, of Devang Mehta, who made it, who was a chartered accountant by profession, but he became the NASSCOM chief. We have Steve Jobs, a prominent example, who has made a name in the IT world, who had no knowledge about technology. So CIO's position is at a threat. Soon functional managers from the user area would be promoted from within, because he's more acceptable. They see him as he's one of us. He's one who has a business perspective, and he becomes more acceptable. So what do? Is we advise to the CIO is, in order to safeguard his position, We need to tell him that technological credentials are okay, but they're not altogether sufficient. So you need to learn apart from technology, you need to develop yourself in business strategy and working in different kind of organization, whether it's pharma, retail, banking, real estate, hospitality. We'll tell you about the different culture. We'll tell you about the business, how the business works, and the different culture of an organization. Apart from technical skill, he also needs to develop on soft skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills. Now, this is soft skill has become very important for every organization, for every manager. Now, a doctor in a hospital, I'm just referring to it, a doctor in a hospital is also a manager. But then a doctor is known more for his clinical skill. But today, if he is strong only at clinical skill, but he lacks in interpersonal skills, he lacks in, he's not empathetic towards his, he doesn't have empathy towards his patient, he does not listen to his patient carefully, he does not give him time, he will not be acceptable. So, soft skill has become a predominant skill which is necessary for every manager. So what we call, that's a new area which we call medical communication, where we train the doctors on how to communicate with the patients. So soft skill is very necessary there as well. Soft skill is very necessary for the IT manager. He needs interpersonal skills. So when he talks about technology, he's actually selling his idea about how a technology is going to help your organization. So he must have communication, persuasion, and skill to sell ideas. So advice to him is don't train yourself only in technology. Spend time in business, train yourself in business, seek partnership with line so that when you make a suggestion, somebody, if you have a friend in the marketing area, if you have a friend in the finance area, he backs you, he backs your suggestion, you get support in the meetings. Then try to attend all the meetings so that you're noticed, so that you learn about the nitty gritty of business. Contribute in the meetings so that you get visibility. So the moment you contribute, people notice you. So I advise to him is apart from technological skills, you also need business skills. So train yourself in business, seek partnership with line, become close to somebody in finance or marketing who will support your ideas. Attend all the meeting in order so that you're noticed. Learn about the business and also because you can learn about the nitty gritty of the business. Contribute in the meeting, seek visibility, study business processes, and try to bring about change in the business process, improve them by using technology. This way, you will build credibility for yourself, and you will build credibility for yourself. Be open to ideas. So even if your idea is not accepted, don't get disheartened. Be open to ideas which is coming from the other areas. Try to explain IT in business terms. So we end up our session here, the role of a CIO. And in next class, I think we have a class on Monday. We will throw light on a small case study of Devang Mehta, what was his contribution, and also Steve's jobs. We'll try to cover up in the next class.
Yeah,
Any
sure, ma'am.
query,
Thank you, ma'am.
anything you want to ask?
Good morning, ma'am.
Anything you want to ask? Yes.
I want to ask a question, ma'am.
Yes, you're most welcome.
Ma'am, can you please tell us about the case of United Parcel Service as well? How as it started in 1907 in a office and the information technology it's competing globally?
Can I know your name?
Ma'am, Umar Mustafa.
Umar, repeat
Yes,
your
ma'am.
question. Let me get more clarity on what you're asking.
Ma'am, I want to know about the case study of UPS, ma'am, United Parcel Service.
Yes.
Started out in 1907 in a basement office, but with the help of information technology, it's competing globally, ma'am. So, ma'am, how that startup in 1907 is using the information technology? I want to know about that case, ma'am.
This is UPS began as a courier company, if I can say. You can
Yes,
use
ma'am.
that term. They developed themselves this in same lines that Federal Express did.
Yes, ma'am.
So what they did is they integrated their units, so that they're able to track the product. Basically, they're using flight management system. They're using tracking system, wherein they are able by their consignment number, they're able to track where the product is. and whether the product will be delivered on time or not. So in this way, they have used technology in order to enable them to deliver products on time. The same set which has been used by Federal Express. Federal Express used technology in order also to convert their customers into loyal customers. And the same technology, they were integrated system that they use, and using the consignment number, and now it has become a common thing. So when you send a courier, you just need the consignment number, and you're able to track, where your product is and whether it is going to be delivered in time. So this is how they emerged, and they have been, all the courier companies, they have been using as a, what we call a flight management and tracking system. So that is the term that we use it. They're able to track their products, the using simply just one code, that is your consignment number. You're able to track your products. There are many cases. I mean, there are cases of how technology is being used to convert consumers into loyal customers. Like, I think there's a prominent case of Jet Airways also, who have been used technology, who have used technology to mine the information about customers, offer them, they offer them free rides, they offer them tickets at very discounted prices. So all of them have been using technology in different ways. We'll take up small cases of some companies, how, like we discussed, I think Walmart, which is a very old case, but yet discussed today. We can also take up, okay, we'll try to focus on Benetton's case, which you'll find very interesting, how they've used technology to their benefit. And in the subsequent class, let us take up focus on Devang Mehta and Steve Jobs. I'll try to cover both of them so that we can take up more cases for discussion. And then maybe we'll take up the case of Benetton, which is very interesting. It's one of the most prominent case of supply chain, and how they have used technology to their benefit. Yes, Omar, am I able to satisfy you? They're using the
Yes,
same system which has been used by Federal Express. Yes.
yes, ma'am. And ma'am, I want to ask that, ma'am, you told us about the Citibank case as well, about the automated teller machine. They were the first to use it. But ma'am, then other banks also followed it. So ma'am, how they can, with if everyone is following up, then how their business will survive?
See, we call them the first mover advantage. In management terms, we use the term first mover advantage. So first mover advantage which always be there. So when they used these ATMs, they were the first to install ATM in prominent positions, say in New York metropolitan area. Like they had it near the banks. They had it at the entrance of a mall. They had it where the person would feel the need for cash. They had it at bus stops where any person would be halting for a while, and then he has time so that he can withdraw money. So in this way, they identified prominent places. Now, when ATM machines, I think Diebold, and I'm not able to recall the other name. Possibly I'll be able to tell you in the subsequent class. They're the only manufacturers of these machines, and they're very costly to manufacture. So each ATM machine was very costly to manufacture. But you see, it has become ubiquitous now. You see it everywhere. You just go on the medical road, you find one, you go it across an entrance of registrar office, there's another. You go to center point, there will be more than one there. So it has become a item which is no more costly, an item which is found everywhere. There are only two manufacturers, Diebold, and I'm not able to recall the name, and it was very costly to set up a machine. So they used technology which was difficult to imitate, which was costly to imitate. You get my point? It was costly to imitate. It could be cumbersome to imitate. And there is always a space between a follower who will install the same ATM machine. So whosoever followed suit came much later. Whosoever followed suit or set up ATM machines or gave the provision of a debit card or credit card came much later. So there's always a time space between the first person who installed it and somebody who followed suit. So there is always a time lag, and you are able to garner large market share during that time span. So this is what we call a first mover advantage. So there will be people. This is the first mover advantage, and there'll be following. There'll be other banks who will install, there are other banks who will imitate your technology, there are other banks who will imitate the move that you have made, but there is a time space. During that time space, you garner a large part of your market share. You garner a large part of your market share. So this is what most organizations are doing. Everybody's innovating. Everybody's innovating. You see, everybody's innovating, and the imitation follows. So everybody would be the other organizations in the same area would also copy you. So, but there is a time space in between during which you garner a large part of your market share. You get a large part of your market share, so that early mover advantage, or what we call the first mover advantage, will always be there. Now you go back to, like, we can, since I take supply chain, let me just give you an example. Like earlier, there were only 2 automobile manufacturers, and most of the developments in supply chain has come from the automobile sector. There were only 2 manufacturers. Can anybody say who were they? Say early early or mid 90s. There were only 2 manufacturers of automobile. Yes? Anybody?
Ford and Ferrari.
Yeah, in India, there were only 2 players.
Hindustan Motors.
Hindustan Motors in West Bengal, who are known for the ambassador cars, and
Maruti.
No, Maruti came in the...
And Chrysler.
No, they're
Fiat.
foreign companies. There were only, the premier
Fiat.
automobiles who were giving the Fiat cars and the ambassador cars. In my childhood, I have seen only
The
2 cars.
Padmini
And apart
model.
from yes, they were exactly. So as a small child of school, I have just seen 2 cars: ambassador, which were the larger size, and the premier automobiles, or what you call
Padmini
Fiat
model.
cars. Yes, Fiat cars. See, and they were the only 2 manufacturers. Early 80s, we had Maruti in collaboration with Suzuki of Japan, which launched the small vehicles, which was known as, I think, Maruti 800. I think that was the term that we used for it. The Maruti 800, when it came, it garnered, and most of these companies, like Premier Automobile, manufacturer of Fiat cars, or ambassador cars in West Bengal, Hindustan Motors. In Hind Motors, it's placed in a place called, small town called Hind Motors in West Bengal, very close to Calcutta, on the outskirts of Calcutta. Now, that was the only 2 vehicles that we would see on the roads. We would see, and they were highly vertically integrated. Now, what is vertically integrated? Yes, anybody from an engineering background, mechanical engineering, they were highly vertically integrated. Now, what is vertical integration? It's consisting of almost 30,000 components. I say you can break them down into small components. Let's see, one is a tire, the other is in a plastic body, the third is the seat, let's say the gear and the axle, the engine, the horn, the light. So if you count, there are so many assortment of components. These components are assembled to form a car. So they are assembled to form a car. Even a cycle, when you break the cycle, there's an axle, there is a wheel, there is a frame, there is a seat. So there are spokes. There are so many components that you can see in a cycle. And TI cycle was the cycle in Ambattur near Chennai, which was the manufacturer of the black cycles that we see, which low income group, they use it for commuting to the office. So those cycle is also made of many components which is assembled. TI cycle was also highly vertically integrated. Vertically integrated means every component you're manufacturing in-house in your own company and you're assembling them. But with entry of Maruti, they did not manufacture all the components. They outsourced component manufacture. So maybe somebody was making the gearbox, somebody the horn, somebody the light, somebody the plastic body, somebody the chassis. So there were different vendors, there were different suppliers for each of these components. And Maruti only assembled. So the assembly plant the plant in Gurgaon is basically an assembly plant. So they are only assembling components which they have got from various others, which they have got from various other manufacturers, various other small suppliers. And all these suppliers are closely placed. So when Maruti came up, they got 80% of the market share. But today, how much do they have? They lost the market to somebody. So they had these small cars, fuel efficient cars, which we call Maruti 800, running on the roads, and they got 80% of the market share because they were reliant on component manufacturers, on different vendors to give the components. They were more efficient cars, and the vertically integrated setup of TI cycles was lost to Hero cycles. We don't hear of TI cycles anymore. We don't hear of premium Hindustan Motors of premium automobiles anymore. It's Maruti all the way. So the days of vertical integration has gone. Now we outsource components manufacture. So Maruti garnered 80% of the market share. But then how much do they have market share now? Close to 50. They lost this 30% share because they did not what we call innovate. So it was only one car, one size car, and one model which were they're offering. The other players came in, Hyundai, Tata Motors, and they started giving variety. So you see, Maruti had the first mover advantage, but they lost it to others. So you have to go on innovating to keep yourself as market leader. So they lost almost 30% of their share to other players like Hyundai, Ford, and others, MNCs, which came in later on in the Indian scenario. So the first mover advantage is always there for you. So you talk of UPS or FedEx or Citibank, they had the first mover advantage. So in management terms, we call it first mover advantage. So it is there for you for some period of time where you benefit. And after that, you have to go on innovating. The imitation will follow. But you have to go on innovating in order to make yourself relevant. Am I clear to Mr. Umar? Yes.
Ma'am,
Huh.
ma'am, I have one more question, ma'am. I asked you about the Michael Porter saying that, ma'am,
Yeah, actually, it
competition
was you. Yes.
to be the best is a syndrome. Yes, ma'am.
Just repeat your question. What was it?
Ma'am, I asked that Michael Porter said that competition to be the best is a syndrome. It will lead companies to be on a competitive convergence. If one airline gives free lunch, then other will follow, and it will benefit the none.
It will benefit none. So I think you have answered my question, or I have answered your question first. See, even in you go to McDonald's, they're giving you value meal. So you went to have a burger, okay, and it cost you some amount of money. But then they tell you that you buy a burger along with a cold drink, so the value meal pack, and you get a free, I think, finger chips free. So a burger might cost you maybe 80, a cold drink might cost you another maybe 40, 120, and finger chips might cost you another 40, so 180. But they give you an offering at 130 rupees. So you feel excited. Okay, you're saving 30 rupees. Say you're saving 50 rupees. So you plan to spend only maybe an 80 or odd 100, but you end up spending more and you don't realize that, right? And but you benefit because you feel that I have saved 50 rupees. Had I bought each of them individually, I would have got, I would have had to pay 80. So it's cheaper for me to buy. But the company benefits. How? You came to spend only an odd 80 or 100 rupees, but they're able to extort from you 30 rupees extra. Ultimately, you're paying for the value meal 130. Okay, that's a good deal for both the consumer who went to have a burger and also the company. But you see, it's not only McDonald's. So if they innovated in this way, there are others who are following suit. This imitation follows. But for some period of time, you are the market leader. You're able to garner share, right? But followers come. So what do you do? What you talked about, that nobody actually benefits. In order to go on benefit, you have to go on innovating. You have to go on bringing about changes. You have to go on being innovative, either in your services or either in your products. So you talk of cars. Earlier, people change cars. Maybe they had one car for a lifetime. Today, you see people are changing cars. Earlier, people change cars maybe in 7 or 8 years, but every 2-3 years now you find somebody driving in a new vehicle. So the product life cycle of cars also have changed. Earlier, companies were launching new vehicles in 5 to 6 years. A lot of research would go into it. Today, they are launching cars every year. They're coming up with a new model maybe in 2 or 3 years. How are they doing it? They believe in what we call a, I think I've referred to this earlier, the concept of frugal innovation. So you talk of Wagoner and Alto. You see, one is called a tall car. The Wagoner is called a tall car. Alto is not a tall car, but 70% of their components are the same. You'll be surprised to know. And there is variation only in 30% of the components. And by bringing about in variation in a small percentage of the components, they are able to give you new model. So in an assembly line, you don't know initially whether it's a Wagoner or an Alto which is being assembled. So both of them are on the same assembly line. But after 70% of the components are made, are assembled, the 30% gives you the differentiation in the element in the final product. Now they still go on innovating. How? By bringing about, they will try to increase on the common components. So maybe 75% of components will remain same, but those 25% they'll go on changing. And that change in those 25% will give you a new product. So you have to go on innovating in order to stay relevant in the business. You get my point? So you're right in your what you said, that nobody actually wins. Okay, Porter's statement, you're right. But then to stay relevant and to garner, because you're in stiff competition, you always have to go on innovating subsequently. So you just cannot rest. You just cannot rest. Yes, Umar, any other question? Anyone else?
Ma'am, I want to
Yes.
ask that, ma'am, ma'am, Peter Thiel, the venture capitalist, said that avoid competition as much as you can. And ma'am, we have seen Google was a big market player, but then also it was not able to innovate something and startups got the way. Microsoft had everything, the capital, the resources, the best business management professionals, but it was not able to make a place for the search engine, and Google took the way. So, ma'am, how these small startups with limited resources are fighting the big established business, like, ma'am, in the big pharma also, various small generic medicine companies are beating over the big pharmas.
It's only because of their ideas, dear. It is only because of their ideas which work. It is only their ideas, the ideas which are actually making them, market leaders. So it makes a difference,
So, ma'am, with all that capital, big companies are not able to innovate.
That I think I have to give a thought to answer that query, right? Okay, next session I will answer, Umar. Yes, any other person, but I appreciate your inquisitiveness, inquisitive mind. I appreciate. Yes, any other question?
Yes, ma'am, may I ask a question, please?
Yes, please. Tell me your name first.
Arma Banu.
Yes, Arma.
Yes, ma'am, as Umar mentioned, a statement given by Porter. And the thing that came to my mind, as you said, that innovation is a continuous process. And as long as innovation continues, imitation is going to continue as well. So we can say that both go hand in hand with each other and both are continuous processes. But again, the question remains that how long is a company going to innovate, and how long can it keep benefiting from those innovations? Because as consumers, it is our behavior to incline towards the products that benefit us more. So isn't this in a way decreasing the benefits of a company? So how long is this process going to continue, and what is the limit where it will be benefiting to both of us? Because at some point of time, either the consumer or the producer are going to feel like it's not worth it anymore.
Okay. Arma, let me answer your question. I'll take one small example. Paste, you have seen. In paste, you find that 20% extra. So that's a kind of a no product innovation. There's no product innovation there. It's the same paste. Then you see in that paste, it's added 20% extra. So that is one company who started this, right? And the moment you get that 20% extra, 20% is quite a substantial sum if you're buying a 200-gram paste or say a 500-gram paste. So all consumers see that, okay, I'm buying Colgate or I'm buying, some other paste, a neem or a other paste. So I just see, I said, okay, they are offering 20% extra. Uh, 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 you know, I buy that particular paste because Colgate is giving me 20% extra. I might have been a loyal purchaser of something. Now, this 20% extra today you will find in every paste, but it was an innovation in a service by some company. So for every innovation, there will be imitation. Why? So at the moment there is a innovation, for that fraction of time, for that time span, till imitators follow. So the one is innovation and the other time is imitation. So there's a time gap between the two. During that period, you garner a large part of the market share. So your market share increases. But soon imitation follows. So it's a cycle. So you cannot rest. Again, you will imitate. You will imitate by giving something else, right? So initially, when it came up with, buy one, get one free. So it was an innovation by maybe one company. But you see, every other company is giving you this kind of a scheme, buy one, get one free, or buy three, get one free, or whatever. So there is always a gap between the innovation and the imitation, and that is the time span during which you really profit. You get a garner a large part of your market share. So it has to be this innovation, and imitation is a cycle. We show it in in SCM. We show it as a cycle. It's a repetitive cycle which will go on. Innovation. You talk of loyalty programs. You know. They give you the Jet Airways loyalty program is a very prominent case, wherein how they worked, converted them their consumers into customers into very loyal customers. But you see, that is something, it became a case study. And then we have those low cost airlines. You know what, they were giving me 5 rupee ticket, 1 rupee tickets. So that was all an innovation. But you see, every other company, so the innovation and the imitation is a cycle which will go on, whether it's a product innovation or whether it's a service innovation. So business, as we see, and consumers, they are lured by these. The consumers are really lured by these. I give you a small example: value meal concept. I had money in my pocket and I went to have a burger, and that's enough. I want to spend an odd maybe 80, 85 or whatever. But you see, uh, I am cautious about how much I want to spend. But then business can lure you. They said, okay, I'll give you, a cold drink plus finger chips free. And then you calculate, okay, a cold drink would cost me maybe another 40. So 85 plus 40 is something like 125 plus another 40 for finger chips, or 50 for finger chips would have worked out to be something like 180 for me. I'm paying only 130, so I'm saving 50 rupees. You're not actually seeing that actually you're being fooled. You went to spend 80, but you ended up spending 130. You ended up spending, rather than you're thinking you saved 50, but you actually spent 50 extra. So you can lure consumers. So you see, you see Wednesday bazaars. We go and buy so many things which you actually don't need because they're giving you discount. So they know they can lure. There is a weak point in the consumers, and you can lure consumers. You can, and I think pizza deals. I think Wednesday they give you very, I think good deals on Wednesday. I think it's a Wednesday, which I think this pizza companies, they give you some deals. So even if you're not in a mood, you feel like buying, okay, because of the offer. So they know they can lure the consumer. So this cycle of innovation and imitation will go on because they know that consumers can be lured into their trap. So it's a continuous process. We end up, like I'm telling you, we end up buying so many things which actually do not need, just because the offers. Just because of the offers. Oh my God, this looks nice, let's buy it. It is so cheap, but I don't actually need it. So that's how the business. See, they study consumer. I think there is a paper of consumer behavior also. So they have actually, they can read your mind. They can read how our minds work. So they can, target us, and we are caught in a trap. Yes, Arma, I'm able to answer you. So this cycle was
Ma'am,
going on.
yes, ma'am, I've understood the point, but my question was that when does this stop? What is the limit? Like,
It will not
there has
stop,
to be a
dear.
point.
It will not stop. I don't think it is ever going to stop. If they stop, the business will stop functioning. They will stop.
Like, as Umar mentioned that, the last point of Porter's statement was no benefit to anyone. So the again, like if this keeps going on and on and on and on, then at some point there will be a point where there is no benefit.
See, but then we are in a competitive scenario, isn't it? We are in a competitive scenario. So, what we do is we work to take away others' market share. Okay, there might be a time, I mean, this is just an idea that comes to me that maybe at one point of time, they will partner with each other to grow together, right? But again, there is competition. Like you told, this is how the alliances come about. We partner with each other. So, see, uh, you talk about the airlines industry, you see there have been so many alliances which have taken place because you're able to increase your market share and you're able to work together. But the moment you partner, you set an alliance with one company, there's another company who would be, in order to garner larger market share, they would partner with somebody else. So we are living in a competitive scenario. It can never stop. I see it that way. It will never stop. The strategies will change. Like I said, it might be innovation in product offering once, it could be innovation in service offering, but this has to go on. And that is how the businesses will sustain themselves. Yes,
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am,
Arma?
it is understood.
But okay, I will discuss this with some teachers and also get back to you, because that is how I
Yes.
see this suit of innovation and imitation is a continuous process. We show it as a circle, a cycle. So we depict one innovation, we garner market share, then we come to the next point. So our market share increases, imitation follows suit, market share reduces, then again an innovation. So it could be service, it could be product. That it's a continuous cycle. See, because
Yes, ma'am, that part
consumers
is completely understood by me. The only question that I have is again, like it
see
is
what
a
I can
continuous
see is you
process.
can lure consumers. Then consumers want something new. They want variety. They
Yes,
want change. They're looking for change. They're looking for variety. So I think consumers, even loyalty is not so very strong, so they can switch over. So we know, we have studied consumer behavior, so we know we can go on benefiting in this way, and that is how the marketers are benefiting. There is one statement by Steve Jobs. He says that he doesn't believe in market research. He says, I don't believe in market research. Market research tells you this is what consumers want. So it gives you direction as to what should be the new product launch. It gives you a direction as to what the consumers want. But he says, no, I don't believe in market research. I don't believe in consumer behavior. He had a what we call out of the box thinking. He says that, well, consumers do not know what actually they want unless until you have shown them. So they cannot read what is. So you have to write it on the page for them to read. It's a blank page. He says it's an open space. So you give them something which they have not foreseen or imagined before. So I don't believe that you have to do consumer research and identify what is it that consumers want. He says that give them a dream they have not seen. So you see something out of the box thinking, and it worked. It works. You see people holding those what do you call mobile phones? They're so costly. You see the Apple
iPhone.
iPhones, yes, they're so costly. But he said that, and in that the screen which is used, that is a glass which is very costly, because if you read his entire his biography, so he talked about there was so much conversation that there were other people who were into producing it. They said, no, how can you give this screen? It is so costly. And that is what he says, ki consumers do not know what they want. He says,
So,
I don't
ma'am,
believe in consumer behavior market research. Consumers do not know what they want. So you have to give them a product. And you see that it has a market. It does have a market. Yes, Amra. Anybody else?
Arma. Yes, ma'am, but it can
Alma.
also be seen as a manipulative strategy. Like in a way, you're manipulating the consumers into wanting and needing something that they never thought they would want.
Yes. That's what he says. I don't believe in consumer behavior. I don't believe in market research to find out what consumers want. He says, I believe they don't know actually what they want. So you show them something and they'll be lured. And see, he was so right. He was so right. He had, and let me tell you, he had no business background, but he had a vision. He had no technological background, but he had a vision. And that is why he has made a mark in a short span of time in the IT world, in a very short span of time, and a very tragic death. In a very short span of time, he made a mark because he had a vision. He had a business with no business background. See, he had no learning about business. He hardly went to college. He was a college dropout. He had no interest in studies. He found it all that boring. We'll be hopefully taking all that in the next class. Okay, any other query, any other question before I call it a day? Okay, students, thank you. We meet again on Monday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.